Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about the new Kill the Noise album that's entitled Embrace. If you've never heard of Kill the Noise, he's an electronic music producer from New York. He's been active for quite some time now, but he first began releasing music under the name Kill the Noise back in 2010. But really, he's been producing music since closer to 2003. He used to go by Ewan back in the day. He's been releasing singles and collaborative pieces sporadically since the release of his debut album, honestly, appropriately entitled "A Cult Classic." It's a real classic that came out back in 2015. To me, he's always felt like an underdog in the EDM scene. He's a very talented producer, a real powerhouse, really, when it comes to dance music, and I think that he deserves a lot more recognition, a lot more, way more recognition than what he has, and a lot more credit as well. This latest album is his now second commercial album, his sophomore album, and I think that it marks a high note in his career. It's been a long wait since his last album, and I think that this album delivers in a lot of different ways. It's very diverse, and it brings a lot to the table. It's pretty short, sitting close to 11 tracks, really, and I'm just going to give you my highlights track by track, starting with the first track entitled Within the Boundaries, featuring Nija. This is a punchy bass tune with a four on the floor style beat. Mija's vocals here feel otherworldly, almost ghostly, thanks to the processing that we've got on them. Lyrically, she hits the nail on the head when she sings, "When I float weightless to the surface, I'm imagining I'm becoming someone else, only free to expand myself within the boundaries." This song feels like a very gradual ascension for the listener, with the intro of the track feeling small, muffled, almost muted, really, and as it grows as it plays out, with eventually the drums becoming increasingly layered, and the instrumental that's accompanying the drums becomes a lot more thick. The bass goes from a low rumble, just barely there, and then eventually it's large and it's in your face. You can't not hear it. By the end of the song, we've got an amalgamation of risers, rushing winds, and layered synths that are echoing the solid and steady bass line. This is a very powerful intro to the album. Moving on to track number 2, entitled Without You, featuring Seven Lions and Julia Ross. This song opens with some icy synth chords that accompany Ross's vocals. Her vocals are serviceable and they do what they need to on the track. The first chorus only features vocals and accompanying synths. Noticeably, there's no drums during this section. And the energy rises shortly after as we get that first drop. Finally, we've got the drums coming in, featuring a nice trance beat that's accompanied by bass rumbles and a blend of muted, chopped up vocals and gated synth arpeggios that are highlighting the very magical chord progression on this song. The instrumental creates an otherworldly ambience, and this all comes together in the second drop of the song, as here Ross's vocals join the interstellar production that we hear on the music. After this, we have a build up into the final drop, and this is one that is drowning in that trademark wave of melodic dubstep that Seven Lions is known for. The transition is seamless as we're hit with starry arpeggios, big snares, and muted bass hits for the transitions. Lyrically, the song is about a realization that you might experience after a breakup, one where you understand suddenly that you're a lot more than the person that you previously thought you were. A multifaceted individual with all sorts of layers of complexity. Sometimes we might fall in love with someone and settle for this person who might harm us or take us for granted, whatever it may be. And these themes are heard loud and clear in the intro, and then in the refrain. We've got lines like "breaking me down, pull me apart, bleeding out and broken for you. I hate you, but I love the rush." And then we've got that repeated phrase of "there's more to me without you." It's a beautiful track that marks yet another, there's many of them, another solid collaboration between Kill the Noise and Seven Lions, and I'm sure that this won't be the last that we hear from both of them together. Moving on to track number 3, entitled Crank. This song kicks the album into a new gear, as the intro is hot with rage and raw energy. We've got huge kicks, sampled brass hits, and drums that feel like war drums that are just kind of getting you ready for battle. This builds up into the first drop, and here the drums are crisp and they hit hard. We've also got the main angry bass growl that we've got here. It sounds kind of like an angry acid trip to me. And the second section of this drop, rather, switches the drums up well, and the groove changes also. Immediately after this section, we hear a brief build-up that starts, and then we're greeted with an entirely new drop. This one features a distinct bass growl that, to me, kind of sounds like an angry cybernetic dragon. I can't really explain it. You just got to trust me on that. The drums are also different, but they still have that halftime groove that we're used to hearing from contemporary dubstep. And then we close out with this drop, and suddenly, towards the end, we have like this very, very quiet snippet of a sample, and we just hear someone whisper the words, "I don't know why, but sometimes I want to squeeze you till your fucking head pops off," which I think was a cute touch. Now, while this song doesn't have a lot going on, I do understand that it's probably got its place in the most recent iteration of Kill the Noise's repertoire. If you're playing a live show, for example, you just have to have that rager that's going to please the kids in the crowd that want to hear angry Transformer music and they want to mosh to it. That's what this song is. Moving on to track number 4, entitled Higher, featuring Ada Lovelace. Here, Kill the Noise gets in touch with his roots with his smooth drum and bass tune here. The intro feels like a cold and desolate land. The vocals feel ghostly, as if they're neither here nor there. It's a perfect approach for this instrumental, featuring a fast-paced drum and bass beat. The whole song is a non-stop groove, really, with each section seeming to highlight different elements of the instrumental itself. For example, the initial bass drop has got a grimy bass and driving drums that are relatively simple when you compare them to the breakbeats that you hear towards the later part of the song. The instrumental does give the listener a brief breather where the vocals do take center stage, but afterwards the mix explodes again, here with driving drums blended with brighter synths and more light and vibrant colors in the mix. Those breakbeats that we hear towards the end of the song are honestly my favorite part. They really scratch a certain type of itch for me. I really do love drum and bass. The lyrical element of the song is minimal, featuring the lines, "I can't take it, I can't let it go, I'm breathing out fire, this heat takes me higher." It's drum and bass, so you don't need a lot going on there. But it works. Moving on to track number 5, entitled How You Like Me Now, featuring the Wolfgang Gartner and Erika Guitrin. This song feels distinct, as the instrumental features a guitar sample that's laid on top of a very groovy bass track. We also have these thick, wavy synth chords that play during the transitions, and there's a ton of wild, syncopated bleeps and bloops and chirps. It's very exciting. The first drop features a thick bass groove that emphasizes that steady 4-on-the-floor beat. The bass is drenched in anger, and it's accompanied by ghostly vocals, vocal hits, and glitchy synth chords as well. The second drop is way brighter. Here we've got colorful synth keyboards that come in and more layered vocals in there as well. The second half of this drop returns to the same instrumental as the first drop, bringing back that angry growl. It's a beautiful and unexpected collaboration between Kill the Noise and Wolfgang Gartner, who is an incredible artist in his own right. Back in the day when I first got into electronic music, Wolfgang Gartner was one of those people that was like really active at the time, putting out a lot of music. And then he went on a long hiatus for several years. And now he's slowly making his way back onto the scene, and I'm really, really happy to hear him back. I can't wait to hear more music from him in the future, hopefully. Anyway, moving on to track number 6, entitled Turn on the Lights, featuring Trent Monroe, Just Do, and Spencer Ludwig. This is a beautiful melodic bass cut. The intro is ethereal with its augmented tones and the arpeggiated synth. And we can hear the lyrics, "If I could trade my soul, would you bury me in ashes? Tomorrow may not come, with today I'll take my chances." The vocals are icy, and along with the background music, they create a soundscape that kind of feels like a snow level in a Mario game, if you can use your imagination. The music then builds during the pre-chorus and chorus, and the instrumental expands as the synths gradually feel less foggy. We hear hints of a crispy guitar and snare rolls that prime the listener for the explosion of that first drop. Here at the first drop, the kicks are huge. The snare that we hear at this part is great, and it's really crispy the way it hits. We've also got bright synth chords that are syncopated. Honestly, they're just playing out the chord progression of the song, but they have a certain type of groove to them, so that it works. We can hear a frying bass line kind of lingering underneath this. It's foggy, and it's not quite out in the open just yet. We get a brief build-up after this drop, which only lasts a couple of seconds before then catapulting the listener into the second drop. This one right here is nasty, as we get a Kill the Noise's signature growling bass that's filling in a fake-out drum pattern leading into that really first meaty section of the drop. The drums hit just as hard, but the bass really steals the show at this part. We then transition out of this section with a sleek synth that tastes kind of like a trumpet, and then we hear these rich brass chords kind of carrying the listener forward. Everything else in the mix then gradually fades out very quickly, with only a kick on every beat, just reminding the listener that the song is not over just yet. We also hear the faint vocals repeating the phrase, "I'm right here, you're not alone." And then the risers consume the mix, and then we're blasted back to that first drop again, this time with enhanced vocal lines and extra harmonies. It's kind of like a bunch of seasoning thrown on top of it. The song fades out with the reminders of a friend letting you know that I'm right here, you're not alone. Moving on to track number 7, entitled Castles on the Beach. This feels like a reflective interlude. It's a very different change that we get on this song. We hear Kill the Noise just talking. It's just Jake here. And it feels kind of like an interview, if you can think of it that way, where he's explaining a metaphor about how life can kind of be like sandcastles. He explains that we spend so much time and effort working on ourselves and on our passions. And to paraphrase him a little bit, it's kind of like the beauty and the cyclical nature of our lives is that you can start over. It's expected, actually, from a certain perspective, if you accept that nothing's permanent, including who you are. The instrumental here is muffled and calm as we hear a simple drum pattern grooving along, accompanied by quiet, plucked synth chords that highlight a very simple tonality. The chords swell, and it feels like the cutoff filters are being turned up, and then eventually they're turned back down again. And towards the end, the plucks then begin to feel less plucky as the attack is gradually more and more soft. This thoughtful interlude is honestly essential for this album, especially when you consider what's led up to this point and what follows here on out. Track number 8, the next song, entitled Brain Damage, I think is probably going to end up being the biggest song to come out of this album, as we hear a classic angry dubstep banger from Kill the Noise. The intro features busy drums. They're full of fills and stutters, and they taste kind of like a heavy metal drum set. We can also hear samples of electric guitars just chugging along and riffing away, and you hear that a lot nowadays in dubstep. And we've also got a heavily distorted vocal sample that features the words, it's just repeating really the words brain damage, but it's so heavily distorted that you could easily mistake it for like bang your head or even break your neck. And I like that it's really hard to understand, because it's not so much about what they're saying, it's more about the energy, really. I don't have a lot to say about the first drop, other than that it's heavy, it's full of that flair that Kill the Noise brings. I do love the stuttering kicks that we hear during the build-up leading into the second drop. This one is more interesting, at least, featuring screeching, high-pitched synths that shriek in the right way for me. It's not jarring, but they are harsh. Just imagine somebody, for whatever reason, threw a Game Boy into a blender. It's a decent banger, not a bad song. Moving on to track number 9, Desolation. We've got a giant shift in tone and mood here. This is a tasty trance banger. It's hard for me to describe trance instrumentals. They're really simple, but their beauty is a gradual experience that you just kind of have to be patient and really behold. And then when you reach the end, you realize what you've experienced. You just have to let the music play out. The chord progression on this song is sure to please any like Deadmau5 fan, for example. because the tonality is chromatic in its movement, and Deadmau5's music moves in similar ways. So does Rez's music, although her music does it in a different way. But anyway, it evokes a certain kind of air of mystery. The synths that we hear throughout the tune include plucked saw waves that have a lot of different automation thrown onto them. They gradually grow and shrink and then grow again. And there's also a subtle driving synth bass that emphasizes that movement forward. The drums are extra punchy and danceable as well. While simple, it's a beautiful song to experience, and I really look forward to hearing it one day at a rave. Moving on to track number 10, entitled Don't Look Back, featuring Moelle. Moelle's feature is, her vocals are ghostly, feels like an alien presence, something is there, you don't really know what it is on the track. And her vocals provide a beautiful contrast for some of the sounds that we hear on the instrumental itself. The musical accompaniment here is classic Kill the Noise, featuring energetic halftime beats, filtered synth stabs that are highlighting the chord progression, and distorted basses for the drops. The intro of the track is a long build-up, and the first drop features bass chops that feel like they're just vomiting all over the drums. After this, we've got a bridge featuring the chorus with extra bright synths that are suddenly illuminating the track. The instrumental then shrinks to a whisper right before the next build-up, and it's a beautiful progression because then this leads, and the track swells as it leads you into a melodic drop. The melody here rests in the deep and distorted bass growls that we can hear, and then after hearing the chorus one last time, repeat, the music then shrinks again to reveal some very beautifully soft synth chords. It's as if we're being ushered into the album closer, which inevitably leads us into track number 11, entitled Embrace. This is a unique closer to a very unique album. It's totally different. It's a drastic change, unlike anything we've heard so far. This track is primarily ambient, featuring a lot of twinkly synths. Imagine some strings that are ripped out of a Mario soundtrack. And there's the sounds of birds singing, some nature noises in there. It feels like a lot like a Vangelis piece. Vangelis is a great composer and producer. He did the music for Blade Runner, the original movie, for example. And I draw this comparison to Vangelis in a melodic sense, the way that Kill the Noise lays down some of the melodies that we hear on this song, but also some of the timbres that Kill the Noise opts to use. They're kind of reminiscent of that style of production, that early, synthwave kind of sound. It's a serene piece that feels like a unique cherry on top of this wild album. At this point, I think that most listeners might end up brushing off this song as like a throwaway that you can just kind of skip, not listen to. But I can assure you that it's an essential part of the entire experience. It was done on purpose. It's a deliberate decision. Overall, I think that this was an exciting and solid album from Kill the Noise. It's been about 7 long years, since the release of his debut album, A Cult Classic. He's throughout the years, he's been one of my favorite producers to watch grow, and I'm so happy to hear this new music. I'm so happy that he was able to put out this album, this project, that I imagine he was working on for years, a long time at this point. And I've seen him multiple times live, but I really want to make sure I catch him when he goes on tour for this album. But yeah, do listen to Kill the Noise. Give A Cult Classic a listen if you've never listened to him. I recommend listening to that before you jump into this. But it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. And if you've taken the time to listen to me talk about Kill the Noise and Embrace, I really do appreciate it. If you're still watching at this point, thank you. I appreciate you. And on that note, if you have any music that you want to share with somebody, you can always send something my way. I will take the time to listen to it at some point if you send it to me. And if you want some feedback, I'm more than happy to give you some feedback also. And yeah, I genuinely appreciate your time, and have a great day. Thank you.